Not gonna be full-time.
Being 6 o'clock, I'll call the planning commission meeting to order. Will the clerk call the roll, please?
President Weatherston.
I'm here.
Vice President Kiriaki.
Here.
Trustee Nancy Pierce. Here. Ron Bachardy.
Here.
Amy May.
Here.
Michael Moore.
Present.
And Jeff Hims is excused.
I have a motion to approve the minutes from November 25 and December 16th.
Move to approve.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. There are two public comment sections tonight. One of them is public comment where you may address the planning commission and frankly speak about anything you want up to 2 minutes. And then that will be followed by a public hearing about a comprehensive plan amendment. If you would like to speak on that, please wait until that subject comes up, and I'll allow you up to 3 minutes to talk about item 5A. So, public comment, is there any citizens in the group that would like to address the plan commission? The plan commission is unable to respond to any discussions that may conflict with open meeting requirements. Seeing none, we'll move on to the public hearing and possible action on items set for public hearing. 5A, Comprehensive Plan Amendment Review. Consider Resolution PC 2025-01, approving an amendment to the village land use plan as part of a multi-jurisdictional comprehensive plan for Racine County 2035, creating a new land use category, transitional light industrial, for the purpose of providing opportunities for low-traffic industrial and employment uses, including data centers within the village, submitted by the Village of Caledonia. Mr. Wagner, do you want to lead off?
Sure, thank you, Mr. President. As you described, this is a comprehensive plan amendment to our adopted plan. This is a next step in setting the table for any future development that will happen in the village as it pertains to light industrial uses. Last fall, the village board adopted a change to the zoning code to allow essentially data centers in the M1 district. And so as time went on, we've had expressed some interest in locating a data center here in the village. And we are looking at our comprehensive plan and realize that the M1 district is only permitted in land use category of industrial. And our industrial uses land use category allows for the M1 light industrial, 2 general manufacturing, and 3 heavy manufacturing. And so to limit the land use category from opening up heavy industrial uses throughout the village, staff has researched and proposing a new land use category titled Transition Light Industrial. And the purpose of this is to create a land use category that refines our industrial land use category to be more restrictive, that if we were to amend our land use plan to allow a place for a data center, that we would have it in such a place where this transition light industrial would be recommended as the proposed land use category in case of any type of rezoning that would limit the rezoning to the M1 light industrial category. And in your packet, there is a proposed language that is part of the amendment that talks about core uses, complementary uses, conditional uses, design characteristics. And from what is in, I do have proposed some modifications to the Exhibit A in the amendment based on some discussions I've had with trustees as well as staff regarding this proposed land use category. Before I go into those proposed modifications, would you like me to continue with that or open it up to the public hearing at this point?
I think we can go to the public at this time and then come back to you,
Okay,
especially if there's questions.
very good.
Thank you, sir. So we will open up to public comment on this subject. I will be asking if somebody would like to speak in favor, and I will also be asking if people want to speak against or neutral. I have to ask you several times just to fulfill the role, so please bear with me. We do have a couple people signed up. Trustee well, let's start out with this. Anybody like to speak in favor of this plan? Trustee Martin?
Yeah, I don't know whether this counts, Fran Martin, 5635 Mile Road. And I'm not sure whether this counts as in favor, opposed, or neutral, because what I have to say really has to do with my suggestion to tweaking it, because I've spoken to Pete about that. And as I said to him, the devil is in the details. So my concern is that this is too broad and it allows uses that we're not even anticipating in places that we didn't anticipate to be industrial. So for example, it says design characteristics within an environment dominated by open space, established forests. I'm not quite sure where you're thinking of, because when I think of a transitional use, it seems to me it would be a transition, and I agree with transitional uses. I think that's a great idea. But it seems to me that it makes more sense to have it transitional between heavier industrial and then residential. This seems to be just kind of plunking something in the middle of what otherwise has nothing to do with it. So my suggestion would be to eliminate or minimize the complementary and the conditional uses, retail and services, commercial. I don't know what that means exactly. I'm not sure what light production means. I don't know how much noise there would be. I don't really know what that is. Retail and services, I don't know if that restaurants or, it's just not very clear to me exactly what the scope of all of this is. And commercial ancillary retail, I don't know what that is either. Again, public facilities, special activities, I don't know what that is either. Concerts, or I don't know what special activities means. Parks and Rec, I'm fine with. Civic, cultural, and community, I'm fine with. I'm not opposed to that. Institutional, I don't know if you want to put, let's say, a school in the middle of a forest, which apparently is what this sort of is suggesting, or if you want to put a school in, immediately next to an industrial area. So it's just not very clear to me. I think the language could be tightened. That's really what I'm saying.
Thank you.
I mean, I do appreciate the data centers, but I do want to say also that we really don't know enough about them. I get, I've read the stuff about Virginia. I have seen some opposition to it. I've seen that there are some lawsuits against existing ones because they were promised that they would be low noise and they're not. So I feel like if we're talking about noise, we should be very specific, not above X decibels or whatever. Once you've got it, you know, and they're noisier than they said they were going to be, then you're just hung with it. So I really think we have to be specific and careful and provide for some kind of enforcement fines or something if they go over it.
Thank you for your comments. So instead of me repeating myself 500 times, would you like to join us? Your name and address, please. So not that we don't know, but please, for the record.
Marla Wishaw, 8345 Foley Road. I appreciate the efforts of the Village of Caledonia in showing that creating a new zoning designation for data centers, moving it from M1, but the transitional light industrial category is too broad and it includes too many other type of developments. Data centers must have their own zoning category just for data centers to address the needs and concerns of that very specific development. It's very different than any other industry we have. Especially because data centers are new and booming now, they're being rushed into communities who may not consider or know all the ramifications. There are 4 types of data centers and an additional 4 tiers of development, from limited protection, no redundancy, to fault-tolerant sites with the highest level of fault tolerance and full redundancy. Should our zoning be tailored to address some of these specific differences? To move on to the wording of the proposed new land use category, it states suitable uses do not generate excessive noise or air pollution and avoids outside storage. Nothing in the description states what excessive is. I would like to see a maximum limit set in stone regarding decibels of noise. Some of the operation for data centers have been reported to make a 55 to 85 decibel reading 24/7 due to generators, air exchangers, and cooling systems. 85 decibels is the sound of a police siren. Nothing in the description states what low traffic is. Be specific, what is low traffic? And another description states light traffic, which is different than low traffic. Light traffic is described differently, and it's truck traffic and heavy equipment use that's limited, with most transportation involved around smaller delivery vehicles. Limited to what? This category also uses low traffic and light traffic interchangeably. The proposed zoning allows small-scale assembly production. If there are 12 low-traffic facilities in an area, isn't that the same as one large one as far as traffic goes? If we have 2 assembly production businesses and they're fine, don't we want them to be able to be successful and expand as they're needed and not outgrow the category that they're in? So if they do grow to almost a high traffic volume, what are we going to say, you can't be here anymore? It's just not a good mix to say you can never be high volume if we want production and manufacturing. It's hard to say to existing businesses that are successful, the zoning doesn't want you to grow beyond a certain point. And of course, there are words in this description like typically have minimal noise, odor, vibration, or emission. And often facilities are smaller and less intensive, but it doesn't say always. Then the most unusual statement that the light production characteristics are less demanding in terms of power and resource consumption. This is not a category in which a data center would even be considered with that verbiage. The new land use category should be for data centers only and should be labeled as such. Specific constraints should be put on decibels running 24/7 and traffic. Buffer zones should be specific, not arbitrary. For example, 0.2 miles from any residential property line. Safety of environmental corridors should also be guaranteed. Asking for a specific zoning category for data centers is more forward-thinking than the mixed-use zoning category proposed. It also lets the village control the use of the land they are rezoning for data center use. Looking down the road, as data centers have been shown to have a 10 to 15-year life, if the data center closes and the land can be rezoned at that time, it can be made appropriate for whatever the new use is going to be. The village board has more to say about the next type of development than just letting the mixed uses take over and not even be part of that category anymore. The proposed multi-use zoning category will allow some of what is now M1 development to be established in an area that would never have allowed M1 in that development if it weren't for the excitement of getting a data center in Caledonia. Planning for a data center and planning for light development have 2 very different concerns for the village. Keep M1 for your light development and keep data centers in their own category. Thank you.
Thank you, Marla. Anybody else like to speak on this subject, pro or con? Anybody on the committee like to speak to this subject? And then we'll have Pete try to answer questions for us. Oh, I'm sorry, I need to close the public meeting. Thank you for reminding me. So the public hearing is closed, yeah. So anybody on the committee would like to ask Pete or questions or?
Pete, quick question on, with that new zoning designation on the village's land use plan, is it gonna be depicted on that plan so the village board would be able to see where that new zoning is going to be coming in? And will that be reviewed and approved by the board? Help, and I'm I'm
No.
still learning.
Nope, no problem.
Help me understand.
Just to be clear, tonight's discussion is nothing about a zoning district. It's about a land use category. And so what is being proposed here before the Plan Commission for consideration is creating an additional land category within the comp plan. And if you have ever seen the comprehensive plan land use map, there's a legend that has different colors: commercial, industrial,
Right.
business park. What is being proposed this evening is another category, transitional light industrial.
Okay.
And that'll be another color. This
It'll
village,
look depicted on-
there's nothing to be on the map because this, by what's being proposed tonight, is the creation of the idea of the transition light industrial land use category. The Plan Commission, the village board may never, ever approve an amendment to the land use plan, changing an area's land use category to this transition light industry. So tonight's discussion is whether or not we should add another refined land use category.
And what's the step after that?
Step after that would be an applicant would have to come before the village board and say, all right, we've seen your land use categories. We've seen industrial, we've seen industrial business park, we've seen now your transition light industrial section. We have no interest in our general or heavy manufacturing districts. We want to be in the M1 zoning. So in order to get approval for a zoning to M1, they need to be in a land use category on the parcels they're looking at to be either this transition light industrial or a regular industrial or industrial commercial. So whether or not this category is recommended approval by this plan commission or even adopted by the board, a data center can ask for a land use amendment for the industrial category, which would make any potential rezone request beyond M1, it could be M2, M3. So this is being a more restrictive industrial land use category. And land use categories are different than zoning. Zoning talks about setbacks, building heights, buffers. Land use category just says, these are the type of uses that we find acceptable within this land use category. So there is a zoning, and then there's land use category. The concerns about setbacks, height, buffers in that are a concern. We have to deal with that at the rezone stage. So
They couldn't pick any arbitrary area within
Sure.
Caledonia.
Sure they could.
They can pick a residential area and say, I'd like this to be transitional. They don't have to choose from an already designated.
No, right now they don't have to. They could say, we want an industrial category right outside of Jellystone Park if they wanted to. Now, it would be up to the plan commission with the final decision by the board if that is a suitable change in land use you want to see in the village. But the land use categories is not a guarantee. If this were to be recommended and approved by the board, doesn't mean this category will ever be utilized. There are categories that are very sparsely utilized. We have one of the categories right next to the power plant. It's a contaminated site. It's a
Right.
landfill.
Yeah.
And so we have a landfill category. You know, someone could ask to put a landfill elsewhere in the village that, you know, by requesting, any property owner can ask for a land use amendment change to the map. So that's for an applicant to come before this commission as well as the board. So what's happening here is we're trying to be proactive in creating the flexibility, creating some protection to the village that if you want to be industrial, well, that's a little too big of an ask because we're afraid that, okay, you walk away. Now we're opening up to this general and heavy manufacturing. We don't want that. So now you're at M1. That limits you to everything that's in the M1. And then specifically in this land use category, we talk about core uses, complementary uses, conditional uses. And I said I had some proposed modifications following conversations I had with Trustee Martin as well as staff members. And so I can go into that, but before I go into those changes, I just want to make sure I'm clear in explaining that this land use category is just another category that's going to be in the comprehensive plan that can be requested by an applicant.
All ultimately subject to the approval of the village.
Correct.
So, Pete, I want to add to your answer, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Marla and Fran both talked about how broad the category was. But if somebody came to us and said they wanted to build a data center, that's where the board can put restrictions or requirements on that property. Is that correct?
When they go for site plan
when
review
they go
and
for
as
site
well
plan.
as having zoning in place, and there's talk about having, if and when that were to happen,
Right.
that there would potentially, we're exploring other avenues to which we can control a data center design layout more specifically. But in a land use category is your 40,000 square foot look
Right.
down on the village. We're not going into the exact details of the site layout, decibel level. That's not addressed in a land use category in a comprehensive plan. That is addressed in the zoning code or a site plan review and other details at the more specific. Because right now, we don't know what they're doing. Are they going to have, Marla mentioned a comment about, full default where I'm assuming that's the backup generators where you have, the whole system can operate offline if necessary through generators, or is it partially backed up? And those are details that are not are addressed at a different level than at the land use category level. This is to try to have it where if there is some other type of location that's being proposed, that they're not going to be as open to various uses such as is allowed in the general industrial land use category.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I kind of have a question.
Oh, go ahead, Amy.
Sorry, because the way I'm hearing this is pretty much we're just looking for another color for the map. But it doesn't make a difference until somebody wants to use that color.
Correct.
Mhm.
So I don't have to worry about the color being over where residential. It's not ever going to make it over there on your map.
That's an interesting comment you're making because, for example, when DeBack was constructed, which is our industrial park along the interstate, that was all agricultural land with residential. That got the land use map was amended, the zoning was amended to industrial and to manufacturing. There was no industrial anywhere around there until the village decided that was what they wanted to see along the interstate over on Highway K. So to say that, oh, it's never going to go next to another use because residential's there or ag is there, that's not necessarily a statement that, you know, you could say that, oh, I don't have to worry because they'll never put this color next to low density residential. Because it depends on the fact if that land is vacant, is it location? There's other factors that would have to be determined by the board ultimately as to whether that change in the map and potentially the zoning is a viable location for this new light transitional light industrial. I'll have to work on phrasing. I always say,
Okay, but if we have it on a map in this new light industrial color, and somebody comes and says, hey, what I want to do meets all the requirements of that color, but we don't like that it's got 50 different air conditioners running, you know, because data centers need a lot of air conditioning. Them allowed. So I've been at hearings where we had to have a legal reason to say no.
Mhm.
Will we run into that if it's the right color?
well, any rezone request has to be consistent with the land use category for that parcel.
And if it's consistent with the land use category for that parcel at light industrial, but we think maybe it should have some specialty requirements, will that run into a legal issue?
That'll be part of the site plan review process.
Okay. That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I guess, right, before I,
Yes, Ms. Pierce has a
oh,
question.
okay, I will wait.
Oh, he's grinning. He's grinning. I understand the reason why we want to look at something, but how is this different than M1? What is this giving us that isn't already in M1? Because if I'm reading your notes correctly,
Mhm.
most everything that you're giving us is characteristics, and thanks for the characteristics of flex space, because that was one of my questions, like, what is that? And I see you gave us that tonight, so we'll get a hold of that. But what is specifically different from what's in M1? Where's that carve-out piece that's going to support the light transitional? That's my, because when I look at,
Nancy, could you use your mic, please?
oh, gosh, sorry. Thought I was noisy enough. Thought I was noisy enough. When I'm looking at the document you gave us tonight, which gives us a lot more information, which is great, the first question that pops in my mind when we talk about light industrial land use and flex spaces is how would this be any different from what Ashley Capital has brought forward under the M1?
Sure, as for Ashley Capital, that is zone, they modified their land use to go from, well, actually, the land use was already, take that back. They never had to go for a land use amendment because when the village did the corridor study and it revised the land use plan, they showed eventually that the golf course was going to be part of an industrial business park. And so when they took over and decided that they wanted to propose an industrial park there, they proceeded to ask for the M3 heavy manufacturing so they would have the most flexibility in which to operate along the interstate, and they had a few neighbors to worry about. So in the case of Ashley Capital, the industrial category allows for the heavy manufacturing districts that would allow, you know, the manufacturing of abrasives, you know, the
So they're at an M3 as opposed to an M1.
right.
Okay.
So they're going to have, that's
That's
where you're going to have your high traffic, your high volume of,
Right. And the reason I'm asking that is when Ashley Capital was here before us, one of the things I specifically asked them was, what kind of things are you going to do out there? And their answers were consistent with this information you've given us tonight. So that's why I'm just trying to get in my head, where's our differentiation between M1 and light transitional?
and I guess to expand on that, M3, when you're zoned M3, what's permitted and conditionally permitted in the M2 and the M1 is also applies to M3. So it so
They can
happens
do
that
it.
the number goes higher, the heavier use you are, you get to incorporate, it's like the nesting dolls,
Right.
where you can have the 1, 2, and the 3,
Right.
where this transition light industry is gonna say, you can't have the M2, the M3, nor the there's actually 4 manufacturing categories. The 4th one is quarrying. The only place that has that is the quarry.
Quarry.
And knowing the contention that we have with that, I'm really not seeing that happening in any of our industrial parks. That would not provide a lot of value to the property owners. So that is the intent of the M1. I included at your desk some definitions or descriptions of what flex space and in light production is. And that could always be something that can be added to our definition section of our zoning code. So that way it's very clear of what uses that would be allowed for that. And so that can be something be done at a later date, because anytime if we are going to have a serious proposal for a data center, it's not going up before the end of this year, next year, or the year after that. These are very large projects that take many, many years to go forward. Many years could be 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, not quite sure. We don't have an applicant who has given us an application to know any details about it. Most we have is the Microsoft over in Mount Pleasant to observe as to how they're
But
going.
what's that difference between M1 and light? What's the specific drop down that's in this language that separates out of M1? Why it's different
The transition is different from
M1? Because all of this you're saying is, sitting here in front of us is actually also in M1. That's okay.
Mhm.
So now we're going to add an additional category. So there's a pull apart there somewhere.
Right, and that pull apart is that we're trying to restrict the potential industrial or manufacturing uses to the least intense of the manufacturing.
Okay, that's
Uses.
the answer. Okay, thanks.
But another question. In terms of, maybe tightening up some of the, I'm sorry, excuse me. In terms of, maybe tightening up some of the language surrounding sound and area in which these developments go in, there's opportunities to maybe tighten that language if this is approved tonight at the village board level. And my next question is, do you see any opportunities to
Ron,
tighten?
you're not being picked up on a recorder.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Do you see any opportunities to tighten up some of the language, or are you comfortable with it?
We already have a zoning ordinance that talks about noise at the lot line that can't
Okay.
exceed 0.56, 0.65, I don't know the exact decibel level, but it's basically a conversation at the lot line. Now, interior to the site, it could be louder, but if at the lot line, at 4 feet above ground, it can't exceed a certain decibel level. We have that rules on the book right now. We have rules with photometrics, with lighting. You can't have more than a half-foot candle at the lot line. You still can have a light bulb,
Okay.
but if I measure it and the level of light is at a half candle or less, it's allowed by village ordinance. So we do have performance standards in place already. However, this land use category, which is, those are the details in our zoning code that we can even further tighten up between now and the time that applicant wants to submit a site plan. There are plenty of opportunities in which to do that. So it's always a challenge to talk about land use, which is that higher altitude look at how layout of the land's going to be, and then the zoning district when there's a reality of a project coming through.
Mhm.
Because as of right now, there is no project that is submitted for us to go forward. There's interest, and so we're trying to create the guardrails for the village
Proactively, right?
to deal with it. And so I do have some modifications. I can present those now, or if there's any other questions,
Please
because I think some of that might help alleviate some of the
What are
the
your
concerns.
modifications?
Wait a minute, let me ask one
Ms. Pierce?
My only other, it's not really a question, but out on Adams Road, we kind of sort of have this situation out there. There's the business that's an information business that's right out in the middle of Adams Road, and it's out in the farm fields. So I guess my question would be, I assume that was an unusual situation by a variance that got that plopped in the middle of agricultural areas. It works just fine. The biggest thing is, yeah, you see the lights at night, but it doesn't bleed over.
Are you referring to the Eaton
Yes.
manufacturer?
Thank you. I couldn't remember the name.
Yeah, I'm unfamiliar with how that was proposed. My guess, there was nothing within quite a distance. I think there was maybe a farmhouse across the street, if I'm not
Yeah, there
mistaken.
is. But I mean,
But
it's set back pretty
It's,
far.
it butts up against the railroad tracks.
Right.
And it has like 100 acres to the west,
hmm
and it has like another 50 acres to the east. I mean, it's
It's a good example in a
has-
certain way of plopping a business in the middle of ag to a certain extent, and it's not causing any problems,
mhm.
except you just got to watch for the employees walking on the road for their lunch break. That's all. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
So in your Exhibit A of the proposed Plan Commission resolution that is before you tonight, there is on the last page, Exhibit A talks about a brief description of what transition light industrial is, and then there's a table of core uses, complementary uses, and conditional uses. In regards, again, this land use category doesn't go into what is permitted, what's not permitted, or what's conditionally permitted specifically, like a haberdashery versus a millinery versus a hat store. I mean, that's for the zoning level. So what I was proposing under core uses is leaving in the light production and flex space in that use, but then I recommend that we put in the definition section, which is in the last section of Title 16, definitions to what flex space is, what light production is, and what I have before you this evening, that 2-page handout has explanations there, and I can come back and refine that and propose that in the ordinance, so that way it is clear as to what those terms mean. Also, I would recommend the contractor establishments be moved to the conditional use category, or if for core uses, or for the proposed uses for this district, and then add the language no outdoor storage. So it's very clear that if you want to have some sort of contractor's yard, that you're not going to be able to have outdoor storage. And the example I would use would be Storage Shop USA that this commission has reviewed, where they're 3,000 square foot units, overhead door, no outdoor storage. There's a small office. The idea is not high traffic, not large enough where you have a workforce of 10, 20, 30 people. Also, I would like to include in the core uses that should be encouraged under this M1 is solar power production facilities. Similar to the Eaton site on Adams Road, they've added quite a large solar array. That would be something that would be quiet, takes up a lot of space, but necessarily would not be detrimental to the neighboring uses here in the village. Also, definition that I think could be suggested is on page 3 of your report. We talk about design characteristics, and to better define the expectations, and not that this category only be considered if you have forested areas or open spaces, is that in the very first bullet, it says industries and businesses will operate within environments incorporating open spaces, establishing forests or thickly vegetative buffers, and ensuring effective visual screening from roads and adjacent developments. I think it makes it clear that if a development comes, they should be incorporating open spaces. They should be establishing forests. They should be establishing vegetative buffers, and not be like, go find some wooded area and build right next to that. That was not the intent of the language. So I would suggest making that modification as well, to make it clear that if any light manufacturing use wants to come here, that these are the expectations that are going to be brought up to you from staff, and expect a bigger buffer areas and ways to mitigate any large uses such as a data center, because those can be tall buildings. We talked just in general about noise generating activities and outdoor operations need to be separated, and, you know, with berms and vegetative buffers. We do have the decibel rules already in place. However, these are just the high-level design characteristics that we expect in this M1 district. So if you're going to get this category, don't expect to have 80% floor area coverage on the site. That's not going to be acceptable in this land use category. Then you want to go to our industrial land use where you can build bigger buildings, big parking lots, paved areas. But in this transition light industry, that's not what we want to have. And these are the expectations. And that's what this land use category is trying to describe. So when an applicant is going through our comprehensive plan, they can say, well, this is, we can work within these parameters. And not many contractors' yard are going to want to have big buffers and separation between their business and the road or their neighbors. So it's going to be a difficult opportunity to have all these other
Grab this hand up. You want it?
extra services. So I'll stop right there. Those are the modifications that I suggested. So if and when the time comes to make a motion to this, that the modifications to Exhibit A, if this Plan Commission finds those acceptable, hopefully you're able to take notes on those changes. We can modify the resolution accordingly
To include those.
Modifications as presented.
Perfect. Very good. Is there a motion? Nancy, did you want to lead off?
Sure.
Thank you.
Wait a minute.
Thank you very much.
I'll make a motion to approve the addition of a land use amendment category of transitional, you got language for me?
I would suggest that in your report, because you're actually adopting resolution PC 2025-01.
PC, if somebody else has it in front of them, he's got it. Go to your microphone.
Okay, revise it. I'll make the motion to approve, and I think I need to say subject to Exhibit A's modifications, that the Plan Commission adopts Resolution 2025-01, which recommends to the Village Board an amendment to the 2035 Land Use Plan to create a land use category, transition light industrial, for the purpose of providing opportunities for the low-traffic industrial and employment uses, including data centers within the village, for the following reasons. The land use category can provide a buffer between heavy industrial areas and less intense land use categories. Second, this land use category provides opportunities for light industrial uses with minimal noise, pollution, and/or traffic impacts without the environmental impacts or more intense industrial uses that can help maintain the village's character.
Thank you, Ron. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Who was that? Was that Mike?
Yep.
Mick? Any discussions on the motions then? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'd like to go on record as an abstention.
One abstention. No, I think we're fine. We'll move it to the village board with that. Thank you very much, everybody. Move on to new business temporary use review. Consider a request to utilize a 20 by 40 canopy tent and a 20 by 8 by 20, cargo container for the sale of fireworks from June 7th through July 7th, located at 7952 State Highway 41, submitted by Jacob Amzara. Is Jacob here? No, he's not. Okay, applicant, Kendall, Illinois, owner. This man called me. He sold illegal fireworks out of the station last year. We're aware of that, correct? And have you discussed it with him, Madam Clerk?
I have not discussed it with him personally, but he was sent to the fire department to talk to them about the inspections, and I did recommend that he also speak to the police department about what is and is not allowed. He also was given a copy of our ordinances stating what is and is not allowed. That's included in the application. So I have not heard back from him.
And he's not here to defend it. Pete, did you have something to add?
I just would want to add, I did have a conversation with the applicant and did explain to him that this temporary use does not in all shape, any way, shape, or form approves the sale of illegal fireworks in the village, that this is strictly approving the ability to sell legal fireworks as identified in our ordinance at this location, having a cargo container to store their merchandise in a tent in which to display it, and that in the conditions of approval, we talk about where signs can, the number, where the signs can be located, access to the stand could be. And I even took it further and I asked him, do you still want to continue to proceed with this temporary use, knowing that you're going to be limited in what you can sell product-wise at the site? And his response was, yes, I want to make sure I have approval from the village to actually sell any sort of firework product. So he is aware that last year he got, he thought he could sell certain types of fireworks, was told by the police officer, no, that is not the case, this is what you're allowed. So we did have a complaint. I think that the applicant was unaware of the restrictions in Caledonia. He thought he was just down the road from Black Cat fireworks and thought that whatever they could sell, he could sell, and that's not the case. There's a reason Raymond got that fireworks shop, because they are less restrictive.
I want to add to that, Pete, because when he called me, he made it very clear that if he doesn't sell other fireworks, he will not make profit. So I don't have anything in this game. I don't care one way or the other if he gets approved or not. But he made it very clear to me that if he doesn't sell real fireworks, that he won't make any money. So I'm not sure why he's still pursuing this.
This is just the first step also. After this is a prerequisite to applying for the actual license from me. So at that point, we can talk further too.
Yeah, Jennifer is correct that he wants to make sure he can actually set up a stand, and then he'll deal with the firework license permit that goes through the clerk's office. He knows that has to be the next step. Even if we approve this, if he can't sell the fireworks he wants to sell, he may just choose not to operate. So for him, he thought it was worth getting this entitlement in place, and that he would tackle the firework sales permit later. And that's his prerogative. So that's why it's still on the agenda, and it's up for this committee to make a recommendation. But that is where we stand with the applicant.
Nancy?
I just have one comment. This location of this particular property, isn't this the gas station where we had the question about the homeowner to the right of it and about the fence going up and all that kind of stuff? Yeah, is that the U-Haul issue?
Yes.
So it's that same location. But otherwise, they're doing fine out there. They're not causing any more problems.
I believe, well, when I went out there last, it looked like there was still tire tracks in the grass, but at least it wasn't in her property. It was on the gas station property
It's
that
on
people were
his
still,
property, that's okay.
we're still cutting through, jumping the curb to get to the gas station. I guess you want Phillips 66 gas. Right? You get there any way you can, I guess. So, but that's where the location of the fireworks stand would be. So hopefully, if it does operate, it'll stop the cars from jumping the curb and trying to get to the gas station.
All the reason for us to.
So, yeah, this doesn't guarantee that the operation will actually happen, because if the firework permit doesn't go through to what he wants and he says he can't make money, then he just won't operate. And this expires. This is good from June 7th through July 7th. So for 4 weeks, he would be able to do it, because part of the permit, you got to prove insurance. And so we wouldn't allow any kind of sales unless
I know it sounds stupid, but I can't put in my head fireworks sales and gas station.
They go boom.
Right. Well, we're not launching the fireworks at the gas station. We're just buying them and then going, to another community to launch them.
Hope we
I'm
don't
gonna,
have an accident with the
I'm gonna
fireworks.
have the lighter concession right next to them.
Oh, right next to you. There you go.
I'm just saying, I think there's a little conflict.
Well,
But
That's
should
risk
we
management.
even, without him here, why should we even act on this tonight?
Well, that's up to you guys.
That's the prerogative of
Make
this
a motion.
committee. You could table it, have it back at next meeting and say, be present. I tell every applicant, be there, even if you think it's a slam dunk, be there, because if you're not there and there's a question, it could be held. So it's very much could be the case here. It's up to this commission's decision. how
Mr.
they wanna
Chairman,
play.
I'll move to table any action on this until we can get a meeting set where the person requesting,
Did the applicant appear?
yeah.
So can we just have it for the next meeting?
We have a motion to table to the next meeting.
Yeah.
Can I get a second on that?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, tabled. We are therefore adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Don't think I'll make the February.